Incredibly important topic, and I'd like to thank Sinn Féin for tabling it. I think it's incredibly timely. I think the discussion has been sad, really, so far, because it is such an important issue. And we hear so much now about fake news and all the rest of it. It's the order of the day. But we've had a lot of fake discussion. We've had people saying one thing when the reality is patently different, and that is quite shocking. It does give you a sort of a Twilight Zone feeling. And there is a certain irony that the Speaker from the Labour Party spent half her contribution going on about Labour's role up to World War I. Well, there's a reason for that, because their role after that, and particularly their role when they were in government, was pretty shameful in terms of the defence of our neutrality. And we don't make those points to score cheap points, but that's the reality, and people have to own up to their political sins or their political crimes, or whatever you want to call it. Now, this bill is timely because I actually think it's more relevant. Mick had a bill on this in the last Dáil, and in fairness, Sinn Féin had a similar bill in the last Dáil as well, and now we have this one. And to me, it's actually more relevant than it was then, because every week nearly we're being asked to support some new assault on our neutrality, and it's quite clear that the government care very little about this. A view that's diametrically different than the view of most of our citizens. And it's precisely because we can't leave these matters to the whim of politicians or the permanent civil service arm of government that we need to have it in our constitution. And at the core of why we're not neutral is, as other deputies have said, our role in Shannon Airport. And I want to pay tribute on the floor of the House to the 2 US veterans for peace who made such a determined and noble stance to highlight the complicity of Shannon Airport in the US war machine with their attempts to peacefully and respectfully examine US military aircraft at Shannon on Patrick's Day. And for the stance that they took, Tarak Kauf and Ken Myers, both of whom myself and Mick had the privilege of meeting, ended up being in Ennis District Court, being denied bail and imprisoned for 2 weeks. 2 men aged 82 and 77, proud, peaceful US veterans. Did they really need to be denied bail and so on? I think for such a dignified protest with a placard, to me, is absolutely shameful. And to me, it's sending out a signal, really, to let the US know, look at lads, we'll take on anybody who tries to jeopardise your use of Shannon Airport. And the irony is that the lads and their colleagues who came over to Ireland for Patrick's Day told us, as veterans who passed through Shannon, they said, we passed through Shannon Airport with our guns in our pockets, despite the fact that we've been told here repeatedly by successive ministers that that doesn't happen. Those men told us that that's what they did, and that's what all of their colleagues did as they went through Shannon. We know from our own case, in terms of when we tried to examine US military aircraft, that people gave testimony to say one person who'd be accused of robbing some US weaponry off a ship, and another off a plane, and another catering worker who gave evidence that he had seen weaponry on the aircraft. So what we have is an Irish solution to an Irish problem. The government tell us, oh no, military aircraft come in to Shannon, but they're not involved in any military exercises. They're not carrying anything, and we know this because the US told us that they're not. But that doesn't explain how these aircraft travel 2 and 3 times a day on an annual basis now to destinations where we know appalling atrocities are being carried out with the assistance of the US military. Instead, they say, oh look, the troops go on civilian aircraft, but the civilian aircraft just carry these soldiers whose weaponry are down underneath. They don't have access to them. That's not true. This weaponry is on board, and we have direct evidence, and the government has had direct evidence that this is the case. So we perpetuate a lie that we pretend that there's nothing on them, because we don't ask, even though everybody knows that there is, and we know where they're going. When appalling examples have been given to various ministers about, even in recent days, aircraft on its way to Camp Lemonier in Djibouti, the location for facilitating the ongoing war in Yemen. And we are complicit in this situation, and that's certainly not something that people want. As other deputies have said, the Irish public is very much in favour of neutrality. The government is very much out of step with that, from the battle groups to PESCO to Operation Sophia, obviously to Shannon. And, you know, Minister Coveney talked about, oh no, but the EU is all about peace. It's about the rule of law. Really? When we see what happened in Libya over the weekend, we discussed this earlier at European Statements. I was in Libya 30 years ago. I flew into a modern airport on a Libyan Arab Airlines aircraft to meet students. I was a student leader at the time, who were the best educated people in Europe and the wealthiest per head of capita. The last remaining airport there, which hasn't had international travel for years, was bombed at the weekend, with 28 people losing their lives. Thousands of people have been killed there. The country is a basket case because of regime change facilitated by powers in Europe, supported by our government. And we're complicit in that, and it's not what Irish people want. And the Taoiseach said earlier he was sorry that Operation Sophia, the humanitarian exercise, hadn't been back on track. He's misinformed. Now, he's not stupid, so he obviously knows what he's saying is wrong. But we had the same ministers telling us various times that Operation Sophia wasn't a military exercise, and then at the end they told us, well, it was a military exercise, but that they had always told us that it was. And today Minister Coveney tries to tell us it's a humanitarian exercise. It's absolute and utter nonsense. So this is a continuation of talking out of both sides of our mouths in terms of our neutrality. So we think that tonight's motion is incredibly important. Neutrality isn't doing nothing. Neutrality is ploughing an independent furrow. And people talk about defending the country. Fianna Fáil are worried about what's going to happen if Ireland is invaded. Well, I'm sorry now, and as a proud daughter of an army family, it's not going to be our conventional army that will defend us if it is invaded. And I don't think it's the $6 million you're spending on your anti-aircraft missiles are going to defend us either, if it comes to that. But if you want to defend the country and you want to defend the world, do the maths on it. There's more wars now. There's more refugees and there's more terrorism. Oh, I wonder, could there be a connection between that? Guess what? There is. Because when you murder people in their beds, when you wreck their societies and kill their children, that doesn't make them very happy, and it makes them leave their homes in pursuit of a better life elsewhere. So the instability is coming from that, and the best stance against that is to stand for international solidarity across nations, for an end to war, and we can be a proud beacon in that. And to do that, the first step is enshrining this in our Constitution.